Giannis has been getting criticized for not being able to go deeper in the playoffs with his skill set. He is doing it the way that everyone allegedly wants it done. The Portland Trailblazers haven't had a Middleton rise up to be what it is that Damian Lillard needs. Giannis Stugotz, the way that he plays basketball is, I think, unlike anything that we've seen in the modern age, where that spin move is the most unstoppable thing in the sport. Maybe there's stuff that you believe James Harden does that's unstoppable. Maybe you believe Kevin Durant is unstoppable as well. But the spin move that he does, yes, where he can just lay it in for efficiency, is unlike anything that anyone else in the sport can do. In a sport of bigger, stronger, faster, that guy does something that no one else can do, where he's just laying it in around the rim, even if there are a bunch of guys there, because he does spin moves and he's too physically strong. But he has done everything the way you want him to do it. Stayed in the same place, waited for the growth of his players. And up to now, though, he's just been getting beat up because he can't get past some of these teams and get deeper into the playoffs. And it takes everyone getting injured for him to do it this year. Otherwise, you'd be killing him again. If the Nets had stayed healthy, somebody would be killing him again. And here he is. When do you?
But he's on the verge of doing it, of landing on the exact right way you want to do it, Dan. As you pointed out, I think that's the frustration with Kevin Durant. Like, if Giannis waited and he waited and he waited, and Khris Middleton got better. And if Giannis can win with Khris Middleton, Kevin Durant could have won with Russell Westbrook. If he just waited, if he was just patient, eventually he would have won.
But you're basically saying that superstars can only live up to your standard of them if they work within the construct of this work environment that we can all admit is bizarre. That the city that you work in is picked for you. You're not allowed to pick it. Your coworkers are picked for you. You're not allowed to pick it.
You must stay
right?
there.
And you must stay there and do it in this way. Otherwise, it's not really the same.
And lose, but don't lose too much. Lose.
Correct.
Go ahead. You got to suffer. You have to suffer, but don't lose too much, because then we're going to crush you there too. I just love what he's giving voice to, Stugotz. It's really unusual for him to be in a series with Kevin Durant and call him the best player in the world. This was something
hard to dispute that, though, right after what we saw. I mean, it's hard to dispute that.
But like, we talk all the time about irrational confidence, right? Like, Mario Chalmers thought he was the best player on every court that he was on. We assume that every NBA star has confidence, particularly the great ones, right? Giannis has every right to believe this is a league MVP. Every right to believe that he's the best player on every court that he steps on, and yet has the humility to say, well, sometimes I'm not. And actually, it's kind of turned out in these playoffs, if Middleton does kind of continue to carry them towards the end of the games, Giannis is probably the NBA's best number 2, because I think it's kind of been determined that he can't be your one. And like, in terms of his specific skill set and the areas of the game in which he struggles, you can't rely upon him to get baskets at the end of games.
He could be your number 1. He just might not. He might have some limitations that don't make him a closer. He's clearly the best player on that team. That one's not up for dispute. I would never call Giannis a number 2.
He's the one.
But he needs help at the end of games, and he seems to know it. I'm more marveling at the idea, Stugotz. It's one thing to think it, that Kevin Durant is better than you are.
Another to say it.
He said it. It's one thing to think that Middleton is your closer. It's another thing to publicly give voice to it. But to me, I don't think that there's any weakness in the admission, even though I don't trust the fan base or any fan base with that vulnerability. Shaq always did it for his sidekicks. Shaq, who could be pretty insecure, Shaq always would say, Dwayne Wade is the best. Penny Hardaway is the best. Kobe Bryant is the best. I think it buys you something with Middleton to be saying that kind of stuff publicly if you're a teammate of his. But the only
helps
way
build his confidence. He feels like he's an equal.
I don't think Middleton necessarily needs help with
Dan,
confidence.
He has some dreadful games. He does, Middleton. He's inconsistent.
I mean, he's got some bad shooting games. He had one earlier in the playoffs. What was it? I think it was game 1 against the Hawks. He had a terrible shooting game. But I'm not even talking about helping with the confidence, because I think once you get to that level in sports, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about that's cool to play with a dude who would put his name on that after a game. And when you know how great he is, because Middleton is nobody's idea of an MVP. When an MVP best in the world type of player is saying, no, this is my closer. This is the guy I trust at the end of games. When he says, because it wasn't just that, what he also said is, if he asks for the ball, he gets the ball. When he wants the ball's his, which is just an unusual way for a superstar to talk.
But you're talking about, like, these guys don't need confidence. But isn't, like, Giannis admitting this almost him saying that he does not have a shortage of confidence, but he's not as confident as everyone else on the court is? Like, acknowledging that someone else can do something better than you is not the height of confidence that you always assume that every NBA player, every top-level athlete has this unwavering confidence, right? But Giannis admitting these things are not markers of confidence. They're markers of the opposite, are they not?
I think it's refreshing. I think Giannis knows he's the best player on that team. What he's saying is Khris Middleton, he is better at closing games than I am. He's got more shots. He can hit a step back three. I can't do that stuff. I tried it. I failed. And now he's doing it.
I don't think Giannis has a confidence problem. I think he is fundamentally hugely aware and knows that he has a weakness, knows that he has a limitation that was exposed in his suffering at the end of last season. And so he's saying, I need help over here. It's awareness more than lack of confidence.
Dan, they kept telling him, work on the three, work on the three, work on the three. He's like, hey, now I don't have to work on the three as much. I have Middleton, I have Drew Holiday, I have other guys that could do that for me at the end of the game.
I think he's just supremely self-aware that he can't shoot, right? And like in the end of games, you need to have a jump shot, and he just has no confidence. He can't even hit free throws. He's going to hit a three-pointer in a super clutch situation. He just has that awareness of like, all right, I can't shoot. I got to give it to somebody who can.
He suddenly figured out the free throws out of nowhere, though. This thing, I don't know how long he's been doing this 10, 11, 12-second thing, but he is suddenly making free throws in a way Ben Simmons was not.
Well, he's a 6 of 13 last night.
Well, it seems like he can make them at home when he's not being taunted,
right.
But all the Atlanta fans and all the opposing fans have now kind of recognized that, all right, you count really loudly, you try and get in his head, and it appears to work.
Looked like he was nailing them after a while. They started counting, and he started swishing everything, except one where he started airballing it, and I think that's where it went downhill.
Did you see that the NBA put it in the last 2-minute report where, like, they said we should have called a 10-second violation,
twice.
But we didn't?
They said twice they should have called it.
It's weird that, like, it's being counted out for all to hear, and yet the referees just don't seem to want to call it. It's fast.
Well, I think you're right. I think what you said last week is right. They got to work in a Mississippi.
They do need the Mississippis. Word of advice for the Atlanta fans: 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi.
Go really
3
slow.
Mississippi.
Maybe that's the play.
The part that I don't get about everything that's happening there, I really just don't understand this part of it. If it's a pressurized thing where it's one of the few instances in that sport where you have a great deal of time to be alone with your thoughts and you're bad at it and you've been struggling at it, you now are taking your time and putting more pressure on it because you hear people counting and getting closer. If you do indeed hear it, some of these guys say when they're playing that they just don't, that they tune out crowd noise and that crowd noise isn't any kind of factor that they're absorbing consciously. But it is strange to me that he'd be putting even more pressure on the free throws by sitting there. They're at 7 and you're dribbling for the 3rd time instead of the 6th. And you're like thinking to yourself, oh, I'm getting close. I've got to hurry this. They're going to call this on me. It just seems like he's applying yet more pressure by slowing it down. And it's totally counterintuitive. And then all of a sudden he starts making them. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I wonder if he like kind of happened on a routine almost by mistake, where it's like, all right, I'm going to be 6 dribbles. Like, he doesn't seem like someone who his entire life has been almost obsessive compulsive in this way. And all of a sudden he's like, all right, I'm going to try and figure out this 6 dribble thing. But all it does is kind of make it worse.
Yes. I think Chris Cody's actually onto something and is right. They should be counting extra slow to make sure that the time runs out, because then he'll be getting confident like, oh, we're only by 5 now. And it's like, no, you're actually by 8, but they're just counting really, really slow. And you keep getting
Piece that together, right?
Yeah.
They should count like
exactly.
They should count like they do in WWE when they do like the countdown.
referee?
Yeah, the referee countdown. It's like a step back and then a step forward. 1 with like their fingers pointing in the air. And 2 and like whenever it's 8.5, like they never count anyone out unless obviously it's in the script. But I mean, like,
that has made me mad since childhood. That guys would be outside of the ring for longer than they were supposed to.
5 minutes, and the referee is like taking a look at his watch, and then
and then he'll get distracted, and he'll just like turn around for no reason because he's at 8, and the guy's nowhere near coming into the ring.
They should be counting back from 10 because it's more stressful when someone's counting down to 1 than when someone's counting up to 10.
Great point.
Yeah,
That's right. It's a great shout.
Why is Giannis doing that?
9.
Can someone explain it to me?
10.